Welcome back to my Bamul gaming series. Today I want to talk about the reasons why I'm concerned for the newest outing of the space opera series from our favorite Canadian developer, and why perhaps you should be too. However, I'm not going to be talking as much about Mass Effect Andromeda itself in this video. In fact, I want to take this opportunity to have a retrospective look at BioWare's past, and how their gaming design changed over time, especially looking at the past few years, and how inside the game through this could perhaps help shape our understanding of why Andromeda is in the shape it seems to be, as well as informing our purchasing decisions as consumers. So, without further ado, please join me on this brief exploration of BioWare's history. The story begins in early 1995, when Ray Muzyka, Greg Zeszuk and Augustin Yip, three recently graduated medical students, pooled their resources together to form a small game development studio with three other people in Edmonton, Canada. Their first game was shipped just 1 year later. It was a mech simulation called Shattered Steel. While it is notable as the studio's first product and what ultimately led to BioWare's partnership with the publisher Interplay Entertainment, the Doctors never touched this genre again, and Shattered Steel is not something most people think about when they hear the word BioWare. It did, however, lead to what I call the first stage of the company's life, namely the period of pioneering innovation, which lasted roughly from 1998 to 2003. These years saw the release of the Baldur's Gate games, which I think we've all heard about at some point. They were both a critical and financial success at the time. The whole series has earned BioWare a place in the annals of video gaming history alongside other CRPG classics like Interplay's Fallout from 1997 and of course Black Isle's sequel from 98. BioWare's Neverwinter Nights from 2002 was perhaps less of a revelation than Baldur's Gate, but it remains to date a darling of many older role-playing gamers. And there is, of course, Knights of the Old Republic from 2003, one of my personal favorites and maybe one of the best Star Wars games ever made. It's fondly remembered by many for also featuring one of the greatest plot twists in gaming history. However, BioWare was not only responsible for the creation of some of the best products of the RPG genre during this time, but also for innovating in technology. Much of the tech they developed for their own games would be reused for sequels or entirely different games made by other companies, that would later also become either cult classics or bestsellers. To give you a few examples, BioWare's Infinity Engine from Baldur's Gate was later utilized in Black Isle's Planescape Torment and their Icewind Dale series. The Aurora engine, revamped for 3D graphics and better lighting, was used in Obsidian's Neverwinter Nights 2 in 2006. A heavily modified version of this was later dusted off for CD Projekt's first Witcher game, as well, which was one of the earlier Eastern European productions to achieve a measure of success in Western Europe and America. And obviously the Odyssey engine from KOTOR reappeared again thanks to Obsidian in Knights of the Old Republic 2. Moving on, we enter the BioWare era of action role-playing. Among other things, this period of time was marked by a number of important business changes in the company, a clear move away from PC gaming to focus more on console development, as well as a general change in the mechanics of BioWare's products. Although we could see the beginnings of this in KOTOR, Jade Empire was perhaps the first of the attempts to truly merge third-person actual gameplay with role-playing elements and dialogue. So it was only natural that their next big product, arriving 2 years later, was an even further step in this direction. I am referring to Mass Effect, of course, which was the first in the series of BioWare's strangely entertaining hybrids of role-playing shooters, if you like. This was also when BioWare started licensing engines developed by other studios, such as Epic's Unreal 3. Behind the scenes, a number of crucial corporate changes in the studio's status happened during this period. Since Interplay was experiencing major financial difficulties resulting in the closure of its fantastic Black Isle game development division, BioWare needed a new publishing partner. After a few years of deals with smaller publishers, it was Electronic Arts that in 2007 bought the partnership established between BioWare and Pandemic Studios. Both companies effectively became divisions of EA after this takeover. Fast forward 2 years ahead, and Dragon Age Origins comes out, the spiritual successor to the Baldur's Gate series, and one of the deepest RPG experiences available on consoles at the time. Mass Effect 2 was another gem that grew out of the talent of this Canadian studio during this time. Another one of my personal favorites, and by many considered to be the best of the original Mass Effect trilogy. Although it removed some of the beloved RPG elements of its predecessor, it also capitalized on the strengths of the series by polishing up the core gameplay model and really focusing on the companion characters. Okay, the name I give this next period in the firm's history may be a bit dramatic, but bear with me here. I genuinely believe that 2011 was the start of BioWare's gradual downfall. Don't get me wrong, most of the content produced by the studio was still pretty damn good, but it was also mired by plenty of issues and a number of huge controversies. It all began with Dragon Age 2's release. The sequel to the highly acclaimed Origins, it gathered plenty of flack from fans and critics alike. While I still believe it was a decent game overall, it was a noticeable drop in quality from the tremendous Mass Effect 2. Many have rightfully blasted Dragon Age 2 for featuring some shockingly lazy recycling of environments and plenty of other unwelcome changes. On a side note, Dragon Age 2 was the only game of this period that was built on an in-house engine. The others continued to use Unreal or were being transferred to DICE's Frostbite. Also in 2011, BioWare's Star Wars The Old Republic finally came out. Even though it was quite unique at the time as the first fully voiced MMO and remains to this day possibly the most story-focused online game ever, it was sadly the exact opposite of what long-time fans wanted. Everyone was hoping for a third Knights of the Old Republic game. Instead, we got another bloody World of Warcraft clone with Star Wars textures. Okay, I am being way too harsh right now. In fact, I've wasted hundreds of hours in Tor myself. BioWare should actually be commended for keeping it going for so long with quality story content expansions, but the fact is, turning the Old Republic era into an MMO cash cow with microtransactions was an unpopular decision on their part, to say the least. Moreover, it foreshadowed the inclusion of tacked-on multiplayer modes for other previously single-player franchises. Which brings us to 2012, and undoubtedly the biggest BioWare controversy so far. I am of course talking about Mass Effect 3. Again, I don't want to shit too much on this either, as it's a game I personally enjoyed. A flawed one, yes, but in the end a much better product than... Kurva. Maybe saying in the end was not the best figure of speech to use in this case, and I think we can all agree whether you liked Mass Effect 3's original ending or not. BioWare could have handled that whole shitshow better, and they lost so much consumer trust in the process that it's still having a detrimental... Fuck, my tongue went weird there. Detrimental effect on their reputation. To be fair, they did correct much of what was wrong with their free extended cut DLC for the game, and later the absolutely brilliant, but unfortunately paid DLC called Citadel. Which brings me on to my next point, namely BioWare's handling of downloadable content. This is something that actually began during the previous more favorable era of the company's history, around the time when it was acquired by EA, but we saw its culmination during the current era with Day 1 DLC for Mass Effect 3 that was essentially cut content from its campaign. The fact that Leviathan, something so key to the plot of the entire Mass Effect trilogy, was withheld from most players by taking the form of paid DLC, and so on. Much of this DLC was actually stellar in content, but why so much of it was absent from Mass Effect 3, a much less generous authoring than its precursors to begin with, in the first place? If there's one wholly positive thing about additional content for BioWare's games in this generation, it must be the entirely free multiplayer packs, and updates that don't split the player base at all. We like that nice stuff, BioWare. Thanks very much. Please do more of that and less of that other, not so nice stuff. In September of 2012, just 6 months after Mass Effect 3 came out, and only 1 day after another installment in the Dragon Age series was announced, both Zeshuk and Muzyka let it be known that they are retiring from the game's industry. This meant that the last 2 members of its original team, after 17 years of working there, were departing from BioWare. This event also marked another chapter in the studio's history, a chance for gamers to look back at its humble beginnings and how it changed into the development giant employing well over 800 people that it is today. Dragon Age Inquisition finally hit store shelves in late 2014, and while by many considered an overall better game than Dragon Age 2, it arrived with its fair share of problems as well. It was BioWare's first open-world production, and this was easy to tell judging by its quality, which suffered immensely as a result of tedious fetch quests and generally boring mechanics. Depth of the experience was reduced in favor of breadth. Perhaps this sudden change in development focus was inspired by the studio's ongoing work on Star Wars The Old Republic and its numerous expansions, leading to many fans aptly dubbing Inquisition as a single-player MMO. It's ironic that the same brand, which used to be responsible for some of the best products of the genre, is now gradually being dethroned by smaller competitors who had much less money at their disposal, such as CD Projekt Red and their brilliant Witcher 3. Last but definitely not least, I want to take a few moments to talk about BioWare's future and of course their upcoming Mass Effect Andromeda. On the eve of the game's release in the US, many gamers are impatient to see if their waiting time pays off. For me, a fan of the previous Mass Effect trilogy, this is also the case, but more importantly, the quality of the finished product and how it will ultimately be received by critics and fans will determine whether BioWare will continue digging its own grave or finally rise out of mediocrity to reclaim its former glory. Sadly, Andromeda has already become kind of a meme before it was even released, with EA's shameless access program, which is basically a paid demo. Many people have already had the opportunity to try out the first few hours of the game and, well, let's just say that the facial animations and some of the writing is of questionable quality, to say the least. Nevertheless, it is unfortunate that some are already choosing to avoid Mass Effect Andromeda based on just its first few parts, but EA and BioWare have pretty much shot themselves in the foot by allowing the whole situation to reach this point. However, to finish on a more positive note, I want to list a few things I like about the game from what I've seen and read so far. Okay, the entire gameplay model seems to be objectively better than it was in previous Mass Effects. The shooting looks tighter than Mass Effect 3, character movements are more responsive and dynamic thanks to the jump pack, and a Mass Effect 1 style Mako-esque vehicle is back, but basically better. Of course, I can't fully confirm any of this until I actually play Andromeda myself and see how it feels. The character creator also seems to have been improved, or at least it doesn't look any worse than it used to be. The multiplayer, although back with annoying microtransactions, seems to be a superior model of that of Mass Effect 3, but this time it won't affect our endings, thank god. Finally, the most obvious change are the graphics. Apart from those horrendous faces, the overall visuals of Andromeda look to be a vast improvement over anything BioWare has put out in the past, and some of the planets we will be able to explore look very interesting. And no, I'm not talking about floating rocks. Well, I believe that's all. I want to finish by asking any other Mass Effect fans out there in a similar position to me to please just wait until more proper reviews and full impressions start appearing online before making your final decision. Don't give in to the hype and blindly pre-order, but at the same time there is no point in jumping on the bandwagon and dismissing Andromeda completely just because of some funny memes. I guess for the first time ever, I don't feel shafted by EA as a European to be getting the game a few days later. This time it actually allows us European gamers to wait out all the shit flinging and the controversy, but still get the silly pre-order bonuses if we decide to buy the game in the end. In any case, let's just hope the whole experience is better than what we've seen so far. But before I go, I want to apologize to my viewers, though, especially the ones who've seen the last video. If you remember the Metro 2033 video, at the end of that one I said that the next video will be a podcast with a Russian friend of mine and yada yada yada. And don't worry about that, that's still in the works. In fact, we've already recorded the whole thing. I'm just working on sticking it together. We've got much more material than we ever expected, so it might actually be published as 2 different videos. So that's coming. I just decided to work on this in the meantime, because that just grew out of its framework. But expect that to appear in the next few days, in the coming week, you know. So thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe, like, whatever, if you like this sort of content, and stay tuned to my channel for more of stuff like this. Thanks again, see you next time.